Katerina Sokolova from the Institute for Journalism in Kyiv, Ukraine, was part of the International Week of Resilient Journalism in Skopje. So, welcome. You were here for about a whole week. How do you like Skopje?
Thank you very much. I arrived on Sunday. Actually, it was the 4th of December, and I would say that I really enjoy the city. I enjoy how relaxed and friendly people are. But some of the things, of course, bothered me as well. But then talking to the colleagues, I understood why it is like that. So you have, I think, amazing perspectives. If the country gets in the right hands, you can develop the infrastructure, you can develop the tourism, so you can promote the country, you can organize some excursions in the mountains, because the mountains are amazing here. You know, when I arrived, I didn't see them. And when the next day I woke up and I opened the curtains and I saw, wow, there are actually mountains here. And we also went to Gostivar and Tetova, and I must say that the experience is very interesting and very different. For example, I didn't know that you have several languages in different towns. And after yesterday's trip with Nasmi and Aryan, I understood that I do not know anything about Balkans, and I was very happy that I arrived here, because when you go to another country, when you communicate with people, when you experience the culture, you understand what they are going through, first of all. You understand how the political system, how media system work in the country. And you understand the challenges and the problems that they are facing every day. So this experience is very fruitful for me. And the organization is also great, because I'm really happy with what Civil is doing. And you work in very challenging conditions here. So I am impressed. Honestly, it's not flattering. It's just how it is.
Thank you very much. So I will ask you, what is your assessment of the Resilient Journalism project, which you were part of this week?
I think that this project is great. First of all, we managed to do a lot of things and publish a lot of work. For instance, we opened the rubric on your websites, on the websites of Civil, in Ukrainian, which is very important for the Ukrainian community, because as we discussed during the project, the propaganda is very strong here, and you need to fight it. You need to provide the trustworthy information to the society, and especially to Ukrainians during this horrible war of aggression which Russia started in Ukraine. So projects like this one, they are very, very important for our society nowadays.
You said that propaganda and disinformation are spread around our country. We know that. We are trying to fight against that. What is the situation in Europe? What is your view of what is Europe doing, the other parts of Europe are doing according to this problem?
Well, I will start with Ukraine, of course, because I have more experience there. It started a long time ago, and it didn't start in 2013 or in 2014, how most people believe. It was a well-prepared and well-organized campaign against the Ukrainian society, the Ukrainian culture, and, of course, the mass media. But because of that, including that reason, because of that, the war also started in 2014. As you know, Crimea was annexed, and the bloody war in Donbass started. And propaganda has a very bad impact and very bad consequences in Ukrainian society. For instance, the families were divided, the people of occupied territories, they were brainwashed by the Russian Federation, severely brainwashed during the 8 years. And in Europe, because you asked me about Europe, and I have some experience, I traveled in some countries of the European Union, for instance, Hungary, Germany, Spain. And I can tell that people, they are only starting to realize how bad propaganda can be and what consequences it can bring to the democracy in the world. And as soon as they understand that they shouldn't be the puppets of this propaganda, everything is going to be all right.
Yes, I agree with you. But this disinformation and propaganda has consequences even of the war, which you are suffering in your country, which I am very sorry for that. But how is affecting from the war perspective, disinformation and propaganda? Are the people feared? How is the situation?
In Ukraine, it is very complicated. It depends on where you are, of course. And if you are on the territory which is controlled by the Ukrainian government right now, which is not temporarily occupied, you get the news from Ukrainian sources. So you see what actually happens when you sit several days in the metro station because you cannot go out because you are too scared or you have babies and you want to save your life. And there were a lot of children who were just born, and young mothers, they had to stay in the metro station where for a second it's plus 12, plus 14 degrees, and there are drafts, and it's not the place for a child to be. And this is just a small example. So when you're talking about the occupied territories, this is totally different situation, and there we are experiencing the basically the totalitarian cult is formed. So people do not have the alternatives. And on the 24th of February 2022, when Russia started the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, we unfortunately experienced how distracting and how how propaganda can destroy the relations inside the family. When we received such horrible messages like we've been patient for 8 years and Ukraine was shelling itself, and you cannot explain to the brainwashed person that it's actually Russia who is attacking, who is aggressor. And because of that, Putin and his surroundings and the whole Russian Federation, they got what they wanted. They divided the families, so the families of the temporarily occupied territories, they just lost the possibility of getting alternative point of view. So what they're getting now is full propaganda of the Russian Federation. And the problem is that you think that maybe when you do not communicate, but when they see that the war is happening and that Russia is killing Ukrainians, you think that, maybe their opinion will change. But no, because you stopped communicating, because they do not have alternatives, they just get even deeper and deeper into the propaganda, and unfortunately, deprogramming, that's what we need. And deprogramming of brainwashed people takes a lot of time, a lot of resources, and a lot of experts. So after we win this war, we will need to work on that.
Because you mentioned that mostly propaganda and disinformation are spread by the media. We are talking about social media, but we can talk also about journalists. What is the situation with the journalism in Ukraine, in both parts of the Ukraine? You mentioned also that people are afraid to go out. What is the situation with the journalists? Are they going out on the fields where the war is? Because it's very difficult even for media, let's say in Macedonia, we are checking, double-checking, triple-checking the informations which are coming from the media, and it's sometimes difficult and challenging to know which information is coming from where. So my question is, what is the role of the journalists in these areas, in the war areas, where they are staying? Are they informing directly from the war field or?
So, of course, it depends on where you work. For example, you can be a TV presenter working in the studio presenting the news, but the journalists are great. Like from the very first day, when they didn't have any equipment, any protection, they went to the battlefield, like basically to the front line, and they were taking pictures, they were recording the reports. For instance, I have group mates who studied with me, and they came back from another country where they worked to document what happens in Ukraine. So imagine how people love their country, how journalists, and how good of a journalist you need to be to come to the country which is in war. And that was very impressive to me. And also some of the journalists, they haven't left frontline. So from 2014, they've been working in Donbass, again, taking pictures and working with the armed forces of Ukraine, because you need to know places, you need to be also protected, you need to get equipment, you need to get the helmets, the vests. And in the first days, just journalists basically were without that, but still, they went to tell the truth, to document everything. So I would say that media are very important right now, and hopefully after that we will get the high quality information from our mass media.
Are you communicating with some journalists from Russia and Belarus? Do you have some connections? Do you know what is the situation about their reporting? Are they checking with you some of the information, or it's everything just Russian, under influence of the Russian propaganda?
Well, I will tell you something about Russian journalists first. For instance, such propagandists like Dmitry Kiselyov, Vladimir Solovyov, they, when we're talking about Dmitry Kiselyov, he worked in Ukraine. He worked, he studied the society, basically, yes. And then, when the war in Donbass started, he started brainwashing people, he started saying awful things about the Ukrainians. So some of the media outlets which are propagandistic also in Russia, they said such things like Ukrainian old ladies would pay Russian soldiers for being raped. That was said from the television, which is transmitted, including the temporarily occupied territories. Imagine how awful it is. So I do not have contacts with Russian journalists. I do not think that there is the journalists that I can trust in this situation.
And from Belarus?
From Belarus, we have some colleagues who are in exile, so we communicate with them, and which is very interesting because Belarusian and Ukrainian are kind of similar languages, and we communicate not in Russian. They talk to us in Belarusian, and we talk to them in Ukrainian, and we understand each other perfectly well. So this is just the emotional part, yes, of our communication. But actually, they were talking a lot about the Russian aggression as well. Some of them, they supported us. Unfortunately, they cannot go back to their country right now, which is very sad. So I would say that some of the Belarusian journalists are very active, and including our project Media Dialogue. So they communicate with us often.
You, as I mentioned before, you are a docent of the Institute for Journalism in Kyiv. You are still living in Kyiv. How is the now situation, and how do you feel if you are living in Kyiv? How do you feel about it? Are you afraid? Is the university still running? What is the opinion of the students if they are coming to the university?
So I will start with the emotional part, because you asked me how do we feel, do we fear? I think that the worst for me was the first week when it all started, and in the morning on the 24th, my mom went to work really early because she started, at that time she started work at 7, and she called me, I think 7:30, and she was crying because it's the second time for her. She already escaped Donbass in 2015, and she said, "Katya, Russia is bombing us." And I said, Mom, just calm down. I will just check it. Sometimes it is fake." So I hung up, and I went to see the news and several sources, and I realized that it's actually happening. And after that, it was very hard for my mom. And seeing my mom like that, depressed, because she was nearly 60 years old, and she had to start her life again. And the most thing that was the worst in this situation for me, when I thought that, okay, if we need to leave the country again, it will be the second time for my mom. How depressing it is to leave everything you have to go just for the unknown. And then after the week, it was getting better and better, because eventually people just get used to everything. There was no transport. There were some groups of Russian soldiers who tried to enter the city through our district just in the buses, regular buses. So they were just hiding. And there were even several Russians killed, not far from my house. So I've seen it all. I've seen the bullets next to the pharmacy, and I remember sending it to Media Dialogue partners as well. So again, the time that you had to wait between the trains in the metro stations, for example, it took 1 hour, hour and a half. People were living in the tents with the mattresses just on the floor in the metro. And but people were so united at that time. I remember the funniest episode for me was when I was going somewhere, I don't remember where, and I took the garbage out, and I saw the glass bottles standing right in one line for the Molotov cocktails. So this was the sign how united the Ukrainians are in their fight against Russian aggression. So now it's getting better. We are getting used to it. We are getting used to it every day. Whatever happens, Ukrainians help each other. They find a solution. For example, now we are working, how can we organize these power banks to stay connected all the time, to have power to cook something, to have, these small gas stoves which you use for the hiking, but now they are used at houses because some houses only have electricity. It means that when they do not have electricity, they do not have power to cook as well. So it's a bit challenging. Sometimes it's very challenging because working at the university, which never stopped working. For example, we have power in one district. It means that teacher has the power, and in the other district, students do not have power. So this balance should be found. Yes, you need to charge everything. And to be prepared for everything, and then it works. So, and again, short comment about the university. Even during the war, we conducted the enrollment campaign. So in summer, we were working to get new students to our university, so they do not leave to the other countries. And some of them said to their parents, I will not go to other countries. I want to stay here. I want to study in this university because I want to be useful for my country.
Thank you very much for the interview. I hope that this war will end. We know that there are a lot of kinds of war, but this one with weapons and with everything, you don't have electricity, you have a very, very challenging situation. I think it should not happen in the 21st century, but I hope it will end. So thank you once again for welcoming in Skopje and for this seminar. I hope we see next time.
Thank you very much.
Again with better news from your country.